Good morning, everyone. Hope things are well. And by the time you are watching this video, I will be travelling down to London ahead of two huge away games with Newcastle United, starting with Tottenham tomorrow. But I have a bit of a bombshell to tell you about the Tottenham game tomorrow. I can't believe I'm saying this. We'll explain why in the vlog, but I don't have a ticket for the game. I've effed it up. I properly effed it up. We'll explain again why in the vlog tomorrow. But yeah, the less we talk about that, the better. But I will still be down in London covering the game. We do have a ticket at least for the cup game against Arsenal on Tuesday. So two huge games for Newcastle where after a few fantastic games, the reality being is that we beat a bunch of bottom half teams, and this is the real tester. How can Newcastle cope away from home against, again, with Tottenham to be fair, bottom half team, but how do we play against Arsenal in the first of two semi-final legs? Huge, huge time for this football club. But we'll talk about those two games in a bit because there was a lot to talk about in this video, and I wanted to start with the obvious that you can see in the title and thumbnail. Tyler Dibling, James Mcatte. How are these two players and these two transfer targets according to the media? How do these two become such a big part of this football club? How would signing one of these players make Newcastle United a much better team? And how, even though these are two youth players, on a short-term basis, they're actually much bigger than you think. And I actually believe that our fan base and social media has perhaps portrayed this potential signing as a bit of a red herring. I actually think this signing's a much bigger signing than you may initially anticipate, and we'll explain why straight away. But I wanted to say, if you're new around here, make sure you get down there and hit that subscribe button. Do not miss out on any of the transfer news on the channel. I am always at the games, with the exception of bloody tomorrow, but I'm still there outside the stadium. I'm just not in it. So yeah, I am always there normally, I promise you. But yeah, I'm always at the game, so please do subscribe and make sure you stay up to date. Newcastle United news, Newcastle United content, it is all here on this channel, so make sure you do not miss it. But starting off, Tyler Dibling. So this is a player that Newcastle United have a good chance of getting. Now, we originally attempted to buy Tyler Dibling back in 2022, but it didn't happen. He went on to Chelsea's youth squad, it didn't work out. He then went back to Southampton, and he has been progressing in admittedly one of the worst teams in Premier League history. But I think it's a similar circumstance perhaps to Lewis Hall a couple of years ago, where I know comparing Chelsea and Southampton's crazy, but Chelsea at the time were rubbish, and Lewis Hall was essentially that diamond amongst just a steaming pile of dog crap. Lewis Hall was that diamond inside the crap that we pulled out and took at Newcastle United on a good deal. And just look at Lewis Hall, 20 years old, and just look at what he can do for this football team. That's the power of a youth player. I would actually go as far as say, without gassing Lewis Hall up, you can all agree with me on this. I think Lewis Hall is the best left back in my lifetime. I honestly think he's the best left back Newcastle's had easily in the last 20 years. He's that good. And Newcastle have got a player, I would argue, for life. This is a Newcastle United fan, and I don't think you'll go anywhere. And he's the sort of player you can build an entire club around, and that's the power of one youth player. And I actually think the Lewis Hall situation you can somewhat compare to Tyler Dibling, because again, look at Southampton's squad, full of crap. It is that steaming pile of poo that I mentioned before with Lewis Hall, but Tyler Dibling again comes across as that diamond amongst the crap that we can just pull out and be a potential great sign for Newcastle. And there's two main reasons why I actually think Newcastle could get this deal sorted out. And the one thing I've seen a lot of fans in social media kind of be a bit perplexed by is you look at Tyler Dibling, you look at James Mcatte, and you go, well, what? Midfielders? Newcastle, look at our midfield already. Why are we signing youth midfield players? But I actually think you're looking at this the wrong way. I don't think these are youth midfielders that are coming in to be in Newcastle's bench. I actually think this is the Miggy Almiron replacement. I think these are coming in as second/first choice right wingers. I think this is the, I wouldn't say the Brian and Bembo sign, because we aren't going to get Bembo in this window, and I think that's the point. We aren't going to sign a player of his calibre in this window that's going to go out wide. So I believe this is the player that's going to go in behind Jacob Murphy, and ideally probably kick Jacob Murphy out of the team and start ahead of him, and hopefully become a much better player as a result. And Tyler Dibling is the first of the two players. He's currently playing out wide for Southampton. He's scored 2 goals this season, which you might be thinking, 2 goals, is that it? But again, that's 17% of Southampton's goals this season actually came from an 18-year-old lad who we tried to sign 2 years ago. We have already attempted to sign this player, which I think is a good thing because it proves that our youth academy coaches actually have been scouting good players, because this guy has definitely kicked on the last couple of years. And secondly, it's a good thing because this player knows Newcastle's been chasing for a couple of years now. It's a good opportunity to entice him to join his football club. This player knows that Newcastle has really been keen on signing him, and it's a sort of prospect and project for him that I think is enticing. And secondly, this would be a Paul Mitchell signing, because Paul Mitchell, of course, was the head of recruitment at Southampton a few years ago, and he knows the club well. He knows Southampton quite well. So this is an opportunity for Paul Mitchell to show off and showcase his abilities. Now, I remember going to the Stack event a few weeks ago now, where Newcastle United had a real transparent meeting. They directly asked Paul Mitchell on stage, what is your relationship like with Eddie Howe? And Paul Mitchell gave, in what in my opinion was quite a defensive answer, but he was vocal, he was expressive, he really came across like he wanted to state his point. He really came across like he was trying to explain everything to the fans, and he has a point to prove. I think, especially with the way the media treat him in the summer, I think a lot of people called him every name under the sun. So it's a real opportunity for Paul Mitchell to showcase what he's done throughout his football career. And this is a real opportunity for him to bring in a youth player that will have a lot of clubs looking at him. There'll be a lot of vultures out there that'll be looking to bring the player like Tyler Dibling in. And of course, with how bad Southampton have been, we all are expecting them to go down this season. So a player like Tyler Dibling straight away will leave the football club at some stage. And Newcastle has to be on that. And I think if Newcastle bring Tyler Dibling in, he would go out wide for us. He would be an out wide option and not his centre midfield option, which I think is a massive point to make. This is someone that will be straight away at least a second choice option for Newcastle. So he will be in the squad much faster than you think. And this is also the same situation with James Mcatte. You look at the current situation here at Manchester City, he's playing attacking midfield. So Adam, what do you mean out wide? How is James Mcatte going to go out wide? Just look at his stats for Sheffield United. He scored 3 goals in the Premier League last season, which I don't want to pinpoint one of our players, but that's actually more than William Osula. We spent £50 million on William Osula, and he's never scored at the Championship level, and he's never scored at the Premier League level. Again, James Mcatte, at the age of 18, scored 3 goals for Sheffield United last season. He scored in the Champions League this season for Manchester City, and he is available for £25 million straight up. Newcastle can buy him now if they wanted to for £25 million. That is the price tag that has been offered down from Manchester City. They want him off the books, and I think it's probably a case where, as mental as it sounds with PSR, but again, City know that it's pure profit for a guy like James Mcatte, so they just want to clear him off the books and get a large chunk of money for him straight away. And we've seen over the last couple of seasons that despite Manchester City's unbelievable youth academy, they aren't the best at having foresight in these players. At the time, Cole Palmer sought him at Chelsea for what was a record fee for a player of his age. I mean, in hindsight, you've sought one of the world's best players and then bought Jeremy Doku as a result, which is really bad foresight from Man City. And it could be a similar situation again, where if Newcastle get James Mcatte, you're talking 20 to 25 million pounds, and then they were able to get something out of him, and he was able to progress well at his football club. Again, you will look really good, and James Mcatte has already proven at Sheffield United that he can score goals even in a bad team. So at Newcastle, when it's a good team with a lot of unbelievable players around him, he's someone that could progress quite well and at a fast rate as well. These two players, especially on a fast rate, I think Newcastle can really get a lot out of them. And I don't think it's a case that it's a midfield option that will be sitting on the bench. I think these are going to be rotation / regular starters as a right winger. I think this is going straight into Newcastle's attack. Whichever one would buy, I think it'll only be one out of the two that Newcastle would buy. But according to the media, these are options that are available, and Newcastle are interested in the pair of them. And it's an option where I think it's a Miggy Alma one replacement. There are also our youth options out there that Newcastle are currently looking towards, but I don't want to oversaturate this video too much for all these different transfer targets, because I know it can be a bit overwhelming. So we're going to leave it at those two for now. But these are much bigger signs than you originally think. And if Newcastle was to sign one of them in this window, it's a massive deal for us to make, and we'll see how things transpire. But I wanted to finish things off with the current situation regarding Sven Botman because he is back tomorrow. I I give you that because he is technically back, but he's still going to be on the bench. He's not going to start for Newcastle. According to Craig Hope, Lloyd Kelly will play against Tottenham and he will play against Arsenal. So it'll be two left-footed centre halves where Dan Burn will shift to a right-sided centre half and Lloyd Kelly will come as a left-sided centre half. Now, to be fair, for the Tottenham match, you got to look at the Tottenham game. They've got basically half a squad out in the bottom half of the table. They are struggling. I know it's a huge game for Tottenham. They'll go guns blazing. They know they have to beat Newcastle if they want to save their Premier League season. But I actually don't think it's a bad game for Lloyd Kelly to go in. My issue and my problem is that Arsenal is the kicker. And I think if Botman was to start against Arsenal, he has to start against Tottenham because he could not throw him in the deep end for the Arsenal game. So it's either Lloyd Kelly for both matches or it's Sven Botman for both games. And that's the kicker because you got two left-sided centre-half playing against Gabriel Jesus and playing against a strong attacking Arsenal team that's got a lot of goals lately. So that's my concern going into the game. But Eddie Howe backs him. I will back Eddie Howe. If that's what you think is the correct choice, then I'm not going to sit here and criticise it. So hopefully it works out, but I can understand the fans perhaps skepticism in Lloyd Kelly or whether he can actually be able to play in these big matches because that semi-final game is huge and it's a tough game for any centre half that isn't playing a regular basis to come straight into it. So that's the huge one for me. He has to turn him against Arsenal because if we lose by 2 or more goals, they will just park the bus at St James's Park and we've got a very, very hard job to do in the second leg. So that's the kicker. But Botman's expected first game back would be Bromley in the FA Cup, which, I mean, I'll tell you a fact about Bromley actually. So basically, in my year group at school, one of my year mates, I guess, actually plays with Bromley now. So quite literally, someone in my year group at school will be taking on Sven Botman. So yeah, it's probably a good game for Sven Botman to be back in. I can't lie, but yeah, it sounds like he will probably be back for the FA Cup games. In Newcastle are sticking with Lloyd Kelly for a couple of huge matches, so I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I think against Tottenham, the rotation's fine. It's the Arsenal game I'm worried about. I just don't know how it's going to go in the Arsenal game, but that's about it for me in this video. What do you think about James Mcatte and Tyler Dibling? Do you think I've made a valid point there? Do you agree with my stance that I don't think these are midfield signings, rather options that would go out wide for Newcastle? And do you perhaps have a different perspective on it now? Do you think Newcastle should go for these players? Again, we aren't going to get Mbembo in this window, so if Newcastle can't get a youth player in now, that's going to be a good replacement for Almiron. I'm actually all for it. I think it's good. I think there's some good deals in there if Newcastle can't get it done. But let me know your thoughts down below. So I'm intrigued to see what you guys think. And take care though, and we'll see you all in the next one.